Hey, my Creating Victory podcast people. Amy J here. And thank you all, first of all, for tuning in, for sharing, for downloading, for subscribing. We appreciate you because we are on a mission here to inspire the world to create victory, get over it, and make it happen. And I say this every week, but really, my guest in the studio today is a lot, 10 years now we know each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, she is really, I mean, talk about a powerhouse of just pure grit and determination and artist for peace and all of that. Mickela, right? I don't want to
hmm
butcher it. Mickela
No,
Mallozzi, who is the founder and creator of the amazing travel and dance show Travel Bare Feet, which is now available on PBS and Amazon around the world. She literally was inspired to go on this journey starting 15 years ago and proving the power of art and dance and food and music to connect us all, whether we speak the language or where our ideologies are. So you truly exemplify everything about creating victory. I mean, to start from an idea and make it happen and still be in it is inspiring to me because I want to fire myself every day. She's had some amazing accolades, 4 New York Emmys, um, New York Times, travel awards. I'm not going to read this list, but she was our Victory Dance Project 2016 Women of Valor. I do have to drop that.
thank you. Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to let her share her story. I'm so excited to have Mickela in the studio. And hi, it's been a long time.
Hey, Amy. It's been a while. It's been a while, girl. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you.
So excited for you. And yeah, sometimes I want to fire myself too. So don't don't think you're the only one in the boat.
Yeah,
All those awards are just like,
I
what the
hear
world gets to
you.
see, but you know how it is when you're running your own business and when you meet setbacks and things happen that are out of your control and you have to decide whether you're going to keep going or you're going to throw in the towel. And look, throwing in the towel is sometimes an answer too, right?
Exactly.
But I'm glad neither of us have hit that moment yet. So,
Ooh, so you're a dancer and a traveler and a blogger and a foodie and you know, how did this all share with us sort of how this all came to be?
yeah. So, as you said, I've been dancing since I was 3. Did the usual tap, jazz, and ballet, and the whole dance school till I was in end of high school. Went to university, but I also played music. I was a musician. I wrote music. I went to music. I went to school actually for music. I went to NYU, but stopped dancing for a while. Um, Fast forward, I my first international trip that I did on my own was my freshman year. My best friend from high school, his father was getting remarried in Scotland, and there
Ooh,
was a whole American contingent going. And so when I went, first of all, it was the first trip ever, like flying by myself, and I had my
wow.
passport, and it was very exciting. But there was this moment where the groom's Scottish, the wife is, the bride is American, and so they had all these Americans coming over, and they're like, "We're gonna give you a Kaylee lesson in this barn, a sheep barn, the day before the wedding." To teach you, to give you an insight into this culture. And that moment was probably, I remember having the most joy and most fun and really
Mhm.
feeling like connected to this culture with my best friend at the time, dancing this Kaylee in, like in a little sheep
And
barn with a little CD player outside of Edinburgh in
wow.
Scotland. And that moment stuck with me. And I've realized over the years, Bare Feet was just me trying to replicate that moment over and over and over and over again of this incredible amount of joy with whether that was at the time the person like my best friend at the time or all these new friends because I like to say I make new friends by dancing with strangers, so
Yeah.
it's making these friendships over and over and over and over again. And so that was 2001, in January of 2001 when I had that experience. Bare Feet came to me in a dream, and there's a whole video on our YouTube channel about this origin story.
Yeah.
Um, but in 2010. And so, a lot of stuff happened. I work in the music industry. I then became a dance teacher. I was traveling for dance, but every time I would travel and I couldn't speak the local language, I would connect with people through dance and then had
Mhm.
this sort of aha moment of, um, I want to start a TV show where I will basically have these interactions over and over and over and over again. And 15 years later from that, here we are. We're currently about to put out season 7 of Bare
Wow.
Feet on PBS. And we have 52 episodes that are always airing on PBS. And we have five
Amazing.
more coming out in May, another five coming out in October, where I've traveled the world dancing in Cuba. I learned the haka with the Maori in New Zealand. I'm dancing with the Garifuna community in the Bronx. I'm learning tango in Argentina. So it's the show's not about perfecting the dance. It's not about being the best dancer. I am not the best dancer. What I am good at is being very vulnerable,
Hmm.
very publicly. So I don't mind messing up. I don't mind getting very emotional with these interactions of yeah. And I think that's sort of my superpower is letting myself have this sense of play with dance versus the sense of
Mhm.
perfection. And that sense of play allows that interaction of connection and like, why do you do these dances and why does this mean so much to your family and to the culture and the identity of the culture and what does that mean? And so that's what Bare Feet's about. It's really about connection. And I feel very honored and privileged that I'm still able to do this after all these years. Like, I run into fans all the time. I ran into the sweetest fan yesterday morning on my way to I'm in a WeWork right now. And her name was Marcia. And she's like, my husband and I watch your show. And she goes, you live a beautiful life. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I live this dream. It's, like it really is a dream come true. Um, and with everything happening politically right now, especially in the United States, with
Yeah.
DEI programs being pulled back and like cultural heritage, the word female, I'm a female host. We feature female stories all the time and diverse stories. There's a threat to sharing truth and beauty and culture and diversity in this country. And it's very scary. It's a really scary time. So the little that I do in my part that I hope to be part of the solution is to bring to the forefront stories of these stories of diversity and equity and inclusion and not
Humanness. Yes.
yes, yeah, and not difference, but our sameness, like what makes us all human, right? Even if we don't speak the same language or don't practice the same religion, like you said, like there are
Yes.
these commonalities, these universals, and we try and highlight that through joy, through dance, through food, through fun, and kind of try and get that point across without really
Yeah.
beating a dead
Yeah.
horse, kind of that's my goal. Anyway, that's the
Oh my
big
God.
small big of it, or however you say
World peace
it.
in action, girl. Here it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, this is really the power of art, right? Talk about artists for peace all the time, and this is it. And I've watched you over 10 years, you know, make this happen and overcome the obstacles and get to the goal. And there's so many layers to it. I mean, the art piece obviously is so powerful. And like you said, anywhere you go in the world, you can connect through dance,
Mhm,
through music. At the end of the day, we all want to be happy. We all want to be comfortable. We all want to have good family. We all want to have
mhm,
and we're able to bring this out through joy onto I love turning on the television. I'm like, that's my friend. I'm in the here alone. Like, that's my friend. She's
mhm.
on
Thanks, girl.
TV. And I remember when I first saw you, I thought, who is this girl? I randomly emailed you. I was like,
Yeah.
how did she, so how, on a practical entrepreneurial level, you have this idea. You
Mhm,
wanted to make a show. How did you decide where to go? Where the money, obviously, I'm hell bent to pay artists. So it's always about where's the money coming from,
mhm.
you know, and how to stay in the game as you're gaining momentum. And I know now you're doing tours, I think, and I know you're speaking, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
evolved into this amazing movement for peace and joy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I didn't know what I was doing. I had no TV background, I had no production background.
I love that.
You made a documentary. You understand how
Oh
that
yeah.
it's
You just
mind-blowing. It's
go.
Yeah, yeah, you just figure it out as you go. And for the past 15 years now, I understand. I mean, I know the ins and outs of every aspect of the show. But when we started, I knew it was a good idea. And I worked in the music industry in the past, so I had friends who worked in entertainment and were like, "Oh yeah, this is interesting. Let me introduce you to producers or executives." And at the time, Travel Channel still aired travel content. Now they just air like ghost hunting stories and ghost hunting shows. But I reached out to them and they met with me and they're like, interesting story. It sounds like it's maybe Dancing with the Stars meets Anthony Bourdain or something, and it wasn't. That's not what this is. It's not a competition show.
I know.
But the main thing they said was, you're not going to be the host. You don't look like a host. You don't sound like a host. So best case scenario, you'll get to sell the idea or concept to someone. They'll hire an actress or a model or a professional dancer who's prettier than you and taller than you and has bigger boobs than you. Oh yeah. And
You
I was
are
like, well,
amazing.
that's not, what's the
The
point of that?
point.
Yeah. So, I kept trying to see if someone would invest in this idea, and I'm glad they didn't, to be honest, because I wasn't ready at the time if they had. I didn't know what I was doing on camera. I didn't know how to tell good stories. Our stories have evolved. If you watch the show,
Hmm.
I'm always proud of the first episodes in the first season. They're beautiful. But as the show progresses, I realized Bare Feet was bigger than my initial idea was. I want to go to as many countries and as many
Hmm.
places and dance with as many people and dress up in as many costumes. It was me, 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 me. I want to do all these fun things.
Right.
And then as the show started, we started as a blog and then a web series. And I'll tell you briefly a lot of the obstacles that had happened in the beginning. But as it got bigger, I realized it was more than just about my adventures. The audience felt very connected to me because, again, this vulnerability on camera. I do look very normal, like your friend
I
next
love
door.
that.
I'm not this like extraordinary dancer. I'm not an extraordinary looking, it's someone who you feel like could be your friend, and that works to my advantage. It's not like I did it on purpose. This is just what you get. And you know me personally, like what you see
Mhm.
on camera and on TV, that's who I am. I'm not an actress. I get to play myself on TV. It's an amazing, amazing opportunity to be this silly, weird person who has a really strange skill set of picking up instruments and dances fairly quickly and making
Yes.
jokes with people and being able to play with the world. Um, so when I first started, I thought, okay, no one's going to help. I come from a family of immigrants. My parents are both from a very small town in southern Italy. They moved here in the
Mhm.
60s. My grandmother was still living in Italy at the time, Nonna Pina. She's 94 now. She's amazing. Love this woman. She is like the matriarch of the family, but I decided I know the language well enough. I'm related to half the town. They have this annual wheat harvest festival. Why don't we start there? And my grandmother at the time was still living full time in this little 4-room farmhouse that my mom was born in. And so I hired some friends, like I couldn't pay them very much, but I hired them and spent my life savings and my parents helped a little bit. They saw like how inspired I was, and but I basically used my life savings. We stayed in my grandmother's farmhouse. She would cook us all our meals every day while we go
Oh
film,
my
and we come
gosh.
back and she'd be cooking. Oh my God, the crew loved it because they're like, we've never seen Italy like this. Like some of them had never been to Italy before, some had been to like Rome or Florence, and they're like, this is not the Italy that I've ever seen. This is amazing. This is.
It's the real
And
Italy.
I mean, it's the other one's real Italy too, but it's Italy that you can't buy,
Right.
right? Like you have this in on the culture, and I think that came through too. Was like you got this frenetic, um, you know, Italian American coming back to her roots, but also having this genuine, authentic, sort of lovely, sort of mini documentary about like connecting with my roots, right? And you meet my nonna, and you see how um affectionate we are with each other. We joke with each other, we cook together, and I'm dancing with the group. And I was really good at producing. I'm very organized. But then when the camera turned to me, I was like, I don't know what to say to the camera. And so that was a learning process.
Mm,
Fast forward, public television, I learned about public television. I'm an independent producer. Bare Feet is completely independently produced. We don't get any money from PBS. We get no money from, unless we're doing the Bare Feet in NYC series, which we get some funding from the city
New
of New
York.
York because we're featuring New York. But other than that, we still have to fundraise through foundations, through sponsors to
Mhm.
help make PBS happen. And by the way, as we're recording this podcast today, it is Protect Public Media Day because the
Oh, I
budget's going to be brought to Congress to save public media. It's on the table. It could be potentially cut. So you want public media, you want PBS, you want NPR for free access to information, for educational, informational, diverse programming. It's the only place that Bare Feet could live and
right.
does live initially is PBS because no one would give a chance on this crazy show about connecting with the world through
Network,
dance.
right.
No one would give a chance to a female host who looked like me. And full transparency, PBS is the only platform where there are this many female travel hosts or female hosts in general, which tells you a lot because we're all independent producers. We're the ones who have to go out and get the money. Networks where there's a majority of men executives will say, uh, men aren't going to trust female travel hosts because they only trust other men giving them travel advice. Not true. Not true at all. Not
Right.
true at all. But that's the
And it's
reality of it.
not negative.
So
I mean, negativity sells ad dollars and gets ratings, and that's not, you're about the joy and the connection and the unity. And I wish there would be more of that in network and cable, but at the end of the
yeah,
day, it's about the dollars. And,
right.
this is amazing to have this
Yeah.
out in the world, and it's so encouraging.
It's work. I
Yes.
think what a lot of our viewers, and I forget this too, we're currently in the middle of editing process right now. So we're like editing and delivering to PBS right now. So the beautiful thing is we just shot all last year up until middle of January for the new season, 10
Mm.
episodes.
Where?
And so we're filming in Ireland, Northern Ireland. We fill in Lafayette, Louisiana, Cuba, New Zealand, in Auckland, New Zealand with the Maori, and in Taiwan. And Amy, you're gonna love this. It's episode 3 of season 7, which is coming out of May, an episode called Accessibility in the Arts.
Oh,
And
don't even get me started.
yeah, because I grew up in the disability community. My sister's a wheelchair user. She has cerebral palsy. We have always featured disabled artists in our show whenever the story lends itself to fit organically. But over the years, I found all these one-off stories of accessibility, of whether it's professional disabled artists, uh, classes and specific schools for disabled dancers and disabled artists, or just the audience experience. What does that mean as someone who's experiencing art as someone who's disabled, the accessibility? So this episode, it's very important. We did not plan that these DEI rollbacks would happen right now as the season's about to come out. And I hate to say that it's like really good timing. I wish it wasn't. I really wish it wasn't.
But it
But
is.
it really is. It really is. And we started, it takes 2 years to make a season. So I had this in the back of my mind for years. And I said, you know what, we're going to go around the United States specifically because the US has very different disability laws and accessibility
Oh,
laws than the rest of the world. And we meet with these professionals and talk and have this conversation of what does accessibility mean?
right.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So of all the episodes, I'm the most proud of that one. We're in the
Mhm.
throes of that edit. And what's amazing is in the edit process, I get to relive, we shot that last summer and we
Right.
shot it, some of it in the fall. And
Yes.
it's sort of like it kind of comes back together. But uh people see what I do. They think my job is hosting the show. That's
That's
5% of my job.
They have no idea what, people see a performance and like, when is that going to happen again? I'm like, well, let's see, the
Yeah.
payroll was $40,000. Let's not even start. And I love this DEI. The thing I'm really wanting to focus on in my own thing with that, having multiple issues, is really the visual disability
Yeah.
because the dark theater, the unmarked stairs, the dark
Yeah.
hallway, the hotels. Oh my gosh. Because it's one of those things you can't see. So I know
Yeah.
the last time I saw you was at Real Abilities, which is focused on advocacy and across platforms. And so thank you for that. And I'm curious on a practical level, how long are you usually in one place? Because it looks like on TV, like you're there for months. And I know from my time in LA, these competition shows get shot in 3 days. They're like 15 hours each. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
decide where to go? What's the prep? How do you find these amazing, beautiful dances and companies and communities? And like, wow, the research that
Yeah.
go into that.
Thank you.
And then the actual travel, like how long are you there? What's
Yeah.
the back end process like of making that happen?
Yeah. So it depends on the season. So we've done multiple seasons here in New York, which are a little easier because most of the teams here in New York, and so we can travel's not
Issue. Yeah.
an issue. But we get a lot more done in one day in the sense that we could film, for example, when we filmed our last season in New York, the morning we'd be in the Bronx filming with the Garifuna group, and
Hmm.
then in the afternoon we might be in Bay Ridge filming an Arab American restaurant, right? Like a Palestinian restaurant. So it's we could film multiple episodes across a certain amount of time that wasn't in chronological order. When we go back to traveling for a show, which I'm really excited that we did, it was post COVID. We
Yeah.
hadn't done an international season since COVID. Um, we generally shoot for 5 days in the location. That's all we get. And it's bookended with a travel day at each end.
Hmm.
When we filmed in Auckland, New Zealand with the Maori, it's such a long
Yes. My
flight
brother,
and a
my
journey.
brother lives there actually.
Oh, wow. So cool. It's really such a cool place. But we decide to do 2 episodes because there's so many great stories to tell. We might as well, we're there. Like it would cost the same amount for travel to
Hmm.
be there for 5 days versus 10 days. So we're
Right.
like, we might as well be there for 10 days or 9 days and get 2 half-hour episodes so we could dig really deep into these stories and we have enough stories to tell. Let's do that. Same when we went to Northern Ireland. Actually, Ireland, I work with Ireland a lot. They're one of Ireland's one of my favorite places in the world to go because dance and music is so authentically and organically integrated into the culture and not like put on, right?
Right.
It's not like, oh, there's someone playing and it's like a
Not
show for tourists.
celebrified. Yeah.
Yeah, it is every day, everywhere. You go to
Oh, I love
pubs and there's
that.
people singing and dancing. It's just, I love it. I love it so much. And the people there, they're such good crack. They're like so much fun, they have such a good sense of humor. Nobody takes themselves too seriously. They're such great storytellers. The food is incredible. I mean, I could go on and on about Ireland, but we had decided to do Donegal and Sligo, which is the northwestern part of the Republic of Ireland, which I'd never been to, very remote, kind of the hidden gem of Ireland. And then we were going into Northern Ireland, which I'd never been to. And as we were putting these stories together, Belfast had amazing story after story after story where we're like, we could do a whole separate episode just in Belfast.
Yes.
So we decided we added like one more day to the itinerary and we're giving 3 episodes featuring because Belfast and Northern Ireland has a very turbulent history and it's a very recent turbulent history. And so we found all these young artists that were using what happened through the Troubles and the next generation after the Troubles
Yeah.
between Northern Ireland and Ireland of like rebuilding their community, of reconnecting and building bridges versus building walls, but then also
Mhm.
there's this resurgence of the Irish language, which is a really important part of that, of like language being an identifier for a culture.
Yes.
Um, so we found and honestly it's from talking to people. So when even here in New York we find groups because I know of dances and I'm very well connected in the dance community, and I have to say now that the show is established, people are fans, so it's easier to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm Mickela Mallozzi from Barefoot. Like, I know you, I watch you. That's a great conversation to have. I didn't always have that conversation. I had to be like, hey, by the way, this is the show. I have to dance with you. I have to dress up. Is that, like to convince them of like at first they couldn't understand the concept, but
Yeah,
now we're an established show, so it's a much easier conversation. They love the concept and destinations. We work with the destinations to the local governments, and they are like, nobody else features our countries or our cities or our destination in this light. And
yeah,
they see the value of it too because they don't want the tourists to go to the same places all the time and do the same
right.
things all the time. They want them to actually get a feel for the local culture. So I get to choose. I'm executive producer. I am I don't have an executive head telling me, no, you can't do that, because I'll tell you this. No one would have greenlit that accessibility episode ever. I know that for a fact. And I can. I
Yes.
can, as long as I can get the funding and as long as I work with the organizations that are saying, yeah, Mickela, we'd love for you to come. I'm doing it. I have nobody telling me no. That's the beauty of public television too, is I have almost full creative control as long as it's within the boundaries of educational, informational programming, which
Mm,
it is. Um,
it's amazing.
so yeah, it's that freedom to tell the stories that I want to tell, but I feel that they're important. And I get messages from fans. I got so many messages from fans because we did a call out for our last New York season. I said, we're all coming out of COVID. It was right when the vaccines were rolling out. I said, we're going to start shooting a new season. Reach out to us and tell us if you know of any dance groups or even neighborhoods or cultures that you think we should connect with. Let us know. We
Wow.
got hundreds of submissions,
Sure.
hundreds. So we had plenty to pick from. And then once you start talking to one dance group in that community, oh, you need to talk to this drummer. It's like a web of love. It's amazing.
I love
So,
that, a web of love. And I love especially talking about Ireland. Corporate media, which is ruled by ad dollars and ratings, is not going to want to share the good things like this. They only want to divide us. And this is such the polar opposite of you saying the young people, they don't want all this war. They don't want all this strife. We just want to, they just want to live and create hope and be prosperous. And what an amazing mission to be able to share that. I'm sure that the governments of these places say, please, share that we're actually good people. Places like Belfast, the people and the news are not the same. And I'm
right.
sure you experience this wherever you go around the world. I mean, you've been to some crazy places and, you know,
I've had only positive experiences in every place I've been.
I love this.
Look, but look, when you travel, something's going to happen.
Right.
I've been robbed. I've lost, I've been pickpocketed. There are things that happen, but that happens everywhere. We live in New York
Everywhere.
City. That
Right.
happens everywhere.
It happened to
Um,
me, my wallet recently.
yeah,
Gone.
yeah. And it happens. It happens. It's unfortunate. That doesn't reflect on the place
Right.
or the people of the place as a generalization. I also hate when people say, "Oh, I had a terrible time. The weather was awful." And it's like, "Well, that's not come on. You
It
can't
was
blame a
raining
destiny."
here yesterday. Oh my gosh, it was pouring down rain.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think, and even for us with Bare Feet, we've had so many instances where we're on a shoot. And again, we're a very small crew, so we're very nimble, and I can make these decisions on the fly if we need to change
Mhm.
anything. Is that I, if something, we're talking to these groups or we're supposed to film somewhere and it doesn't turn out the way we think it's supposed to turn out.
Mhm.
And we're like, we need to find another group or we need to make changes on the fly or somebody cancels because some emergency, whatever it is. It's always,
Happened.
instead of like, okay, it's a disaster, we're like, okay, let's figure out how we can make this work, and maybe the storyline changes a little bit, and it always ends up being better than we ever imagined.
Oh,
Always.
love that.
I really truly feel like and anybody on a bare feet shoot can testify to this. We are a very lucky crew. We've been lucky with weather, knock on wood. We've been lucky with the people being so warm and kind to us. We've been lucky with the access that we get. We've been very lucky. And when I say lucky, I think I've been told by Korean Buddhist monks and shamans, like, you have good karma, Mickela. And I'm like, I must have done like gone through a lot of stuff in past lives because I am very, 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 very lucky
It's
in this
your
life.
mission. I mean, I practice SJ Buddhism. I was just thinking cause and effect as you're talking, you're bringing such light to the world, cause, effect, and whatever. And I love this idea of resilience because I feel like young people today are losing their grit a little bit with social media and they don't want to
Yeah.
power through. And if something doesn't work out, there's this entitlement or just, I don't want to say laziness because it's a little bit not their fault, but it's not willing to do what you do and redirect and have it work out even better. You can't, as you know, stop. It's like the story of you have a
Yeah.
12-day
I
journey
think,
where you can't stop on the 11th
yeah.
day.
Right, right, right. I think it's, and I agree with you. I think, and it's, failure is scary.
Yes.
Failure is scary. People saying no to you is scary. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling whatsoever. Um, but you know what it does? It helps flex that muscle of, okay, it's not the end of the world if someone says no to me, and they did that, and now I move on and I keep going. Just pure statistics, pure numbers. You're going to get, let's say, 10% yeses in your life, 90% no's, right? So if you ask once to one person for something, and not like, give me your money, of like, hey, do you want to work on this project, or are you willing to help me with this? And they say no, you've
Mhm.
only asked once.
Right.
That's 100% of the time. Statistically, you have to ask like 100 people, or it's like 98%. Maybe it's not
Right.
90%. I think it's like 98 or 99%. 99% of the time. So that means you have to make 100 asks to get the one yes.
Response. Hmm.
So if you put it into that perspective of like, okay, that's a lot of asks and a lot of no's that I have to hear over and over and over and over again and pick myself back up and like start again and keep going with it. And if you're asking for the big ask at the beginning, of course you're going to get a no. Like,
Right.
start, it's
Oh,
incremental. And that was, I also come from a family of immigrants. My sister has a disability. We were taught as kids, like, don't, like, there's nothing, not in the sense like there's nothing you can't do, you can do anything, but they were like, no, you figure out how you're going to do it,
right.
because that's, you can figure it out, to me
Yeah.
and my sister. And so there was no barrier in the sense that it wasn't like everything's at your disposal, but they're like, there is possibility, you have to figure it out yourself.
Hmm.
And there is, whatever you can do, figure out what you can do. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate my mother. She's always instilled in that. My father too, and I see my sister as an example of that, and vice versa. The two of us, really are each other's champions.
Mm.
And I think at least for my sister and I, we love to champion other people,
Yeah.
right? Like, someone else's wins are not your losses. And so you can
Thank
champion
you.
other people, you know?
Yeah, this is amazing and just my head is spinning. It's all so true. It's so inspiring and
Oh, thanks, girl.
you know the keeping going and that I love this percentage because I'm constantly asking and the relationship building, we've had to do this with the company. I know you've had to do it. You get this amount of funding or this amount of support, you turn out the work, and over time, 10 years later, you can give the big ask and you'll get it. But in
Yeah.
this instant gratification,
Yeah.
Instagram, YouTube kind of culture, it takes time, it takes grit, it takes all the belief that you have to build in yourself and the confidence and okay, this didn't work. It's not personal. What do I need to kind of reframe? How do I make it happen? So this is amazing and hopefully lessons that youth can learn and
Yeah.
all the places you've been. I know this is probably an impossible question to ask. Is there one thing or one place or a couple places that really stuck out or warmed the most? You know, I mean, you've been everywhere,
Yeah. I
I think.
well, no, I mean, there's so many places. I think I truly love coming back home to New York.
Mm.
I mean, I love it because I love that we truly represent the world in a fairly small amount of space.
Yes.
And you can try and taste the world through food in New York City. You can dance your way through New York City. You can dress your way through New York City. There's so many ways that you can experience the world if you cannot get on a plane right away, or you don't have access to flying all the way to
Let's do it.
Taiwan, or But so for me, it's realizing, and what I love is bare feet, especially our New York seasons. That's how I see New York. Like I loved bringing that to life because that's how I get to see New York is I take all these dance classes and connect with people through dance. And the biggest compliment I get from fans is, especially if they live in New York, like I had no idea about Little Sri Lanka in Staten
Yeah.
Island, or I had no idea in my own backyard in the Bronx there was this whole community of people. So that to me is the best because it's home. That's home to me. I love to travel, obviously. Again, Ireland has a special place in my heart. Guadeloupe Islands, where it was Carnival on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, Mardi Gras. Guadeloupe Islands really has this strong connection to its Black roots
Mm.
and its Black identity and really celebrates that. That wasn't always the case, but it has become so prevalent. The Caribbean, I think, is one of the most culturally rich areas of the world because of all this confluence of so many cultures over
Yes.
hundreds and hundreds of years of people forcibly being brought over and this sort of amalgamation of indigenous, European, African, and what came of it is this like gorgeous mix of powerful, resilient people, and their music and rhythms and dances have come through. It's to me when I go to the Caribbean, I don't go to the beach. I go I go dancing because
Yes.
I'm like this is the best. This is the
Amazing.
best. Um yeah, there's so many places, and there's so many places I have not been to. So many, so many. And uh look, as long as my knees don't give out and I can keep moving, and I'm gonna keep dancing. I'm gonna keep connecting with the world, no matter what, right? That's just kind of
What you do, you do make the
yeah.
impossible possible with the power of movement. And we love that. Where can we find you? Do you have any parting words of wisdom for someone with an idea or wanting to create value or young people trying to navigate this crazy world?
Yeah, I would say don't give up what makes you you. You
Mm,
know, I have always been this person that is very enthusiastic and had these weird skill sets. And for a while, people would tell me, you're not the right person for this specific thing, or tone it down a little bit, or, good luck with that.
hmm.
I knew deep down that this was me. This was the voice. Or also when I was starting the blog and just focusing on dance, and they're like, you need to expand it to top 10. And I thought, that's not my voice. That's not what's driving me, what's giving me this passion for what I do. If
Mm.
you really want to pursue a passion project, make sure you're passionate about it and you're true to your voice. Stay true to who you are, because 15 years later, if I didn't love traveling and connecting with the world through dance, and I was just chasing a gimmick or whatever was going to go viral, like I would have stopped a long time ago because I would be so exhausted. I am exhausted
Yeah,
already, but like you have to love it. So I would just say,
spiritually exhausted.
yeah, yeah, you're really exhausted, but the fact that I get to love it and that I do love it keeps me going. So I think like just don't forget at the core what your mission is, and what you're trying to get across. And if
Mhm.
you start to lose yourself, kind of reset and think, okay, what is this really about? And I
Mm.
think with Bare Feet, we've always kept it. I travel the world and I connect with people through the universal language of dance and music. It has never wavered from that. I feel like I've gotten better at that because I've practiced it. And that's another thing is if you don't know how to do something right away, start learning how to do, like, take classes or find a mentor, find someone who can help you cultivate
Oh.
the skills that you need to be able to at some point be good at the thing you want to do.
Yes.
Um, Again, this instant gratification, it just doesn't work. The world
Doesn't
doesn't
work.
work like that.
No.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Thank you. This is
Thank you, Amy.
I'm so
I
happy.
mean, you're of all people, you're the prime example of that. You know,
Ah,
you really are. You really are.
I'm like, this is most days, right?
Yep. Same, same. I'm like, I want to
I'm
curl
just
up into
there.
bed and
Yeah, I can't. I'm crying. Then like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Get up, make one more phone call. That next phone call, you never know. That next
yep,
email. That so, I can't
yep.
wait to see you in person now that we're both back here full time in New York. Where can we find you? When do the new shows air? Where can we
Yeah.
support, donate, follow, all of it?
Thank you. Yeah, if you go to travelbarefeet.com, travelbarefeet.com, all of our episodes are up there. You can support us. We are fiscally sponsored. So if you're like, I want to help make the show $10 or however much money you want to give, it's there. But either way, all of our shows are accessible on the PBS app, pbs.org for free. We're also on the Go Traveler app. We are on Amazon Prime, and the new season will start airing on PBS starting May 1st. Those are the first 5 episodes, including our accessibility in the arts episode. And then the next set of episodes will come out in October. And we are constantly fundraising. We're PBS. We get no funding from public television whatsoever.
Right.
We have that platform. So if you are a foundation that believe in the arts and the power of public media and the power of cultural connection and you want to support in any way possible, reach out to us. We're at travelbarefeet.com. And you can get a fully tax deductible donation that we can accept on your behalf. So yeah,
Amazing. Thank
yeah.
you for
Thanks,
being
Amy.
true artist for peace. Thank you all for checking out the podcast, for creating victory and making it happen, for downloading, sharing, supporting, and let's dance because we can.